Well, I'm recording. It doesn't matter. Someone's going to edit this. It doesn't have to be like a clean start.
I'd like to have a clean start. And actually, I want
Do you
them to
want me
keep
to
this
stop
in.
recording?
No, I want to keep this in. I want a clean start. I want them to keep this in. Are we ready to do this? Put the drink down. We can hear nothing but ice.
Dirty start.
Very well. Welcome to Split the Difference. The video podcast.
I have no idea. The thing.
I'm Allen.
I'm Whitney.
This is episode 0039. After a long hiatus, almost as long of a hiatus between Spectre and No Time to Die in theaters in November, but I won't see it. Whitney, how you been?
It was so good, Alan. I'm actually really impressed.
What are you drinking?
I'm good. Vodka and ice.
What did you make before?
I tried to make a pina colada, which I thought was just peanut, pineapple, colada, coconut. I don't know why I thought colada is coconut. Colada might have nothing to do with it. And then cherries. And I wasted some really nice rum. That was gross. Don't do that.
It was disgusting.
Don't do that,
put
kids.
Coconut milk in there.
Well, because in my head, the curdling process was totally cow related. So if I wasn't using cow milk, I didn't necessarily need to worry. Also, alcohol and milk curdles, I didn't get it. So back to the tried and true.
Cow milk. Huh? I mean, what? I'm gonna ask you to rank something, but I just real quick.
Please.
Can you give general thoughts on milk? I had a little controversy on Facebook. I was talking about whole milk only having 3.25% fat compared to 2% versus 1%, which is just water. What's your preferred milk? Do you like it coming from a cow? Do you like it coming from a nut? Do you like it coming from, I don't know, a tire?
Oat. I'm an oat girl.
Your oat milk.
Yeah, like tiny little baby teats. Just like this, each one. It's expensive enough that you would think that's the process. Oat milk, mostly because I just can't do cow milk, and oat milk is very close, I think. I have cooked with it. I eat it on cereal, coffee. I don't really drink coffee like that, but it is a very nice substitute. And you can get it in different, not fats, like creaminesses. I don't know.
Oat thickness?
I think so.
Like
like you can get sort of a high, and it might actually be higher in fat. I don't know, but you can get like a creamy version. And I don't think there's a non-creamy version because who just put water in your cereal.
Ooh. Like an owl.
Mm-hmm.
Whitney, I want you to rank some things.
Please, let's do this.
Because we have a good show, which we do about 50, 60% of the time. We have a good show. We're going to talk Hollywood stories. We're going to talk a little bit about gender reveal parties and how not to destroy half of the West Coast.
A little bit about currency.
Get it? You can count on it. But I want you to start by ranking mythical creatures. I'm going to give you 5.
These are mythical creatures, or these are like cryptids?
I don't know what that means. I'm just going by mythical creatures, but you can give the context.
Like Loch Ness Monster is a cryptid.
No.
Or like Bigfoot is like people believe that it's a thing, but okay, no.
No.
Okay.
But I don't have evidence. I would only go with the facts. I don't have the facts.
No,
I'm just saying.
I'm asking you to argue whether or not it's real. I'm just saying, are we talking those kinds of animals, or are we talking like Pegasus?
I don't want to have a distinction between a Pegasus and the Yeti. I don't know if it's Yeti or the
very
Yeti.
Inclusive. It's very inclusive.
I don't know if it's like Ukraine, the Ukraine. It's, for those listening, it's Ukraine. Don't put the there.
It definitely is.
Whitney.
Let's do this.
Manticore, Hydra, Dragon, Kraken, Phoenix. I'd like you to rank those.
Okay, I definitely need to look up Manticore.
I'm happy to explain it to you.
Oh, please, go ahead.
A manticore is a mythical creature that has a human head, the body of a lion, and the tail of a scorpion.
That is going to be the worst one. That's number, what is it, 6? How many choices did you give me? 5.
I gave you 5.
5. Okay, that's number 5. 100%. Hydra is a dragon with 3 heads. No, a snake with 3 heads?
It's a water-like creature. Sometimes it has 3, sometimes it has 9.
What is a water-like creature?
Yeah.
I remember Hercules, my friend Hercules. I remember that he fought the Hydra and he had to burn the head so they didn't regrow. Because every time you cut one off, a new one would, no, like 3 new ones would grow or something. It would probably be 3 if it had 9 heads. That would make sense.
But I think the number varies. There's one that you got to watch out for. Allegedly, one of the heads is immortal, so you really want to keep your eyes on that one.
Got it. Yeah, I'm probably going to be that one in the middle. Okay, I'm going to say I feel like that one might be number 1. A regular dragon is kind of boring.
Regular.
Flies, yeah, well, because you
fire.
said, wait, what were they again? Manticore, dragon, Hydra.
A kraken and a phoenix.
Kraken and a phoenix. Phoenix is a little too overdone. I'm just going to put that in the middle. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm going to put Kraken at number 2.
Oh, good choice.
Number two. And then I'm going to keep Hydra number 1. I don't have really like a reason for that, the Kraken, other than I just think nature documentaries where they're like giant squid and then you see the eye and it's like this big. Yeah. I just think that's really cool. There's something about big shit that I like.
You seem to lean heavily towards the water-based creatures. Is that because we as humans don't know as much about the oceans as we do about everything else? You're a little bit low on the dragons, but I see Hydra at the top, Kraken 2. This is a pro-water stance. Is that a fair assessment?
You know, it really is. And it's not intentional. But yeah, maybe that is why. Maybe there's a natural pull. You know, maybe there's a mystery that needs to be solved, and that's really what I'm seeking for at my core. Or maybe those are just the best ones. What the fuck? The phoenix?
Yeah.
You know, there's a phoenix tattooed on them, like a giant phoenix tattooed on them.
Who?
Ben Affleck.
Oh, that's where he went wrong.
Well, it was one of those like post-divorce, I gotta do something.
We've all been
kind
there.
Of things. Yeah, definitely.
I'm just going to tell you something. You were very disrespectful to the Manticore. I think the Manticore is actually sneaky. I would put it at number 2. Very sneaky.
It's the worst parts of 2 of the animals. I'll let you decide which one has the best part.
If I'm ranking these, I'm gonna give you Phoenix at number 5. I'm going to give you, and this is no disrespect. This is no disrespect whatsoever.
I feel like I'm disrespected.
Dragon number 4. I think Dragon's really
no. I said Dragon number 4. Dragon.
I think the Dragon is underrated because you get an aerial assault and you got the fire breathing. You can't.
You don't know. Is a dragon
projectile.
Always fire breathing?
Yeah. No.
I don't know. I've got to watch How to Train Your Dragon.
Has to be.
Again. It's a delightful movie.
Number 3. I'm going to put the Kraken. By the way, shout out to our good friends in Seattle. Got the Seattle Kraken coming, new NHL team. Very excited about that. Kraken. But here's the thing about Krakens. They've gone commercial. Team name, you got liquor. Who's the alcohol company like that?
No, it's
Kraken. I mean, like, get out of here. Yeah, Kraken. It's safe. Everyone likes it. Everyone wants to be close to a Kraken. Kraken should strike fear. It's gotten soft. That's number 3. Manticore number 2. I'm telling you, the scorpion tail, underrated. The human mind, the ingenuity.
That right there was the best part.
Underrated.
Why would you take the body of a lion? You take the head, and the head is the worst part of a man.
I know you got the stamina. You got 4 legs. I mean, you covering a lot of ground. Take my head, put it on a lion. I'm just telling you.
The head is the worst part of a man.
Don't Photoshop this. No one Photoshopped my head on a lion. Number 1, Hydra. You know, I'm pro water. And you got multiple heads. If you have a lot of heads, if you're coming through the water, you're going to light somebody up. I like it.
Yeah. All right. Good one. Where did that list come from?
It doesn't matter where the list comes from. It came from my fingertips.
Random internet sleuthing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's fair. I get it.
You're doing a lot of things with the internet.
Let's just keep on moving.
I want to go. Let's talk about our first big topic, first big story. Hollywood moves. A lot of things going on in Hollywood. In many ways, you're the expert here. I know the preparation you put in to these topics. And there's 2 areas I want to get into. One is the new standards that the Academy, I guess I can say confidently, the Academy put forward to encourage more inclusion. And so is it Motion Picture Academy? Like, what is the Academy? Is that what it is?
Yeah, the Academy of Arts and Sciences or something. Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. But I don't really know who those people are, to be fair. So, I mean, it could be producers, it could be financiers. Like a financier doesn't necessarily know much about, I shouldn't say producers don't know. A lot of producers are very talented and really understand the creative process. I mean, when you have an artistic award that's really meant to serve the creative side of things, and you've got a bunch of people who are making decisions about that awarding process that actually don't know all that much about the creative process, it's a little suspect. I've not been particularly excited about the Oscars probably since I was in film school.
Film. There are new standards for Best Pictures, and this has really been something that's been in the works for months. Special Task Force, a part of the Academy, Aperture 2025 initiative. To qualify for Best Picture, a film has to meet two of the following four standards: on-screen representation, themes and narratives, creative leadership and project team, industry access and opportunities, or audience development. And within each of these categories, and this is from the LA Times, obviously, that did some great reporting on this. Each category has its own criteria. So it's trying to encourage inclusion among underrepresented groups, including, but not limited to, women, people of color, the LGBTQ plus community, those with cognitive and or physical disabilities. These standards won't kick in until 2024. And I didn't know this, Caps, but previously to qualify for Best Picture, all you needed was a film running longer than 40 minutes and some specifics about where it was screened publicly. I had no idea that was it. And so I want to get your thoughts as someone that has spent a lot of time in the space of thinking about creating things and the arts. How do you feel about this? This is a long, far crawl from Oscar So White.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I'm really interested to see how the process of sort of applying, for lack of a better term, would really look like, right? So like, how are production teams going to actually demonstrate that they fit into these buckets? Or are members of the Academy going to make assumptions about how people fit into these buckets? I think the buckets themselves are actually quite interesting. So again, this idea of like wraparound stakeholders in film and TV. So you have, of course, the on-screen talent, you have the production staff, you have the audience. There's one other thing. I can't remember what it was.
On-screen talent. Now I'm going back. I'm scrolling. Audience development, creative leadership team, project team, industry access and opportunities.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? No, but that, I mean, thinking about like all the different people that are engaged in the process of making the film, enjoying the film, like why does it even exist? Who are the people that will sort of be touched by it? I do think it's really interesting to think about diversity in all of those fields and inclusivity in all of those fields. But I also am just like, how are a bunch of people who are old and white and male going to be the best judges of this? I think if you change the standards without changing the actual governing body, I'm worried that that's going to end up falling flat anyway. So a movie like Green Book got touted as being a movie that was all about diversity and telling this wonderful story about the African-American experience. And a lot of us who saw it, and I say us really, but I didn't see it. It's a story that's actually been told time and time again. It's a white savior story. And I think it's really easy for folks who are perhaps well-meaning white people to just make that distinction, because if you don't have the people who are sort of making that decision, if that's not a representative group, I'm not exactly sure how you really fulfill on all these other ideas. I think they're good ideas, but I don't necessarily trust these people to be the best judge of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it does. And it seems like the Academy has a range of standards that are easier or harder to apply to your point. So some of the standards regarding the on-screen category, which I think most people
Mm-hmm.
will probably be the most attentive to.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe it's one of the lead or significant supporting actors has to come from an underrepresented group, or at least 30% of all actors in secondary or minor roles are from underrepresented groups. You know, a lot of people think
So much
about
math.
the exactly. A lot of people think about some of the contenders this past year, 1917, for instance, The Irishman. These are pretty white stories
Very much so.
that I don't know if would qualify on that standard.
Mm-hmm.
With respect to the industry access piece, how many paid internships or apprenticeships do you have going to underrepresented groups? But I don't know if you set a number there, right?
Yeah.
Those could
Yeah.
be ways to identify.
And I think it's an interesting thing to think about because a film like 1917 was a pretty remarkable film. Did you see that one?
Absolutely.
Really remarkable film. And the idea that that somehow wouldn't have been eligible wouldn't seem particularly right to me. Really, when thinking about the movies that I saw of that year and the caliber of the production, I mean, there was a lot that like makes you feel something in that movie, and that's a pretty good bar for me when it comes to thinking about like what are the best movies that I've seen, besides things like Friday where I can just quote every line and I just love it and it makes me feel good. But I do think that when we think about what makes a film diverse or inclusive, I appreciate that there's opportunities in front of, behind the camera, and in front of the screen, right? This audience development piece is probably the piece that I have the least understanding of. But I like the idea of like, how are we making sure that we're engaging the right kind of community? Are we marketing to the right people? Are we offering it in the right kinds of neighborhoods, or giving opportunities to smaller theaters or theaters that are independent? And I just think about diversity often looks like a Black person being a part of a process. And it's actually way more than that. One of the things that I was really struck by when you were sort of reading a little bit more about like what these categories look like is this idea of just different levels of ability and disability. And that's a really wonderful thing for us to be thinking about when we think about representation, when we think about inclusivity, the kinds of voices at the table. I mean, the reason for sort of creating a diverse set of voices at the table is not because you just have to check a box. It's because someone who thinks differently than you do or than other people do will eventually make the product better, right? So if you have the opportunity to have people who come from all kinds of different backgrounds together, you can actually make a better product. So I really like the idea that this may incentivize productions, houses, studios, directors to be looking for how to build that into their projects in very, very different ways. But I do think a lot of the directors that we have looked at in the past are going to have problems with this. Scorsese, I don't know that there's a lot of Black people in Martin Scorsese movies. I do think there will be champions of it as well. And I think a lot of those will be people of color, but I don't think they all will be. I think a lot of them will be younger filmmakers who have been kind of on the margins and looking for opportunities to get a little bit more into the commercial game. So I think it's a net win. It is a little bit silly to me because again, I'm thinking about like the group of people that it's coming from and like, do I really trust these people to be the great judges of what is diverse, inclusive, and creates a space of belonging? Probably not, but we'll see.
Just to close the loop on with respect to the audience development piece, this is coming straight from the standards released by the Academy. Quote, the studio and or film company has multiple in-house senior executives among underrepresented groups on their marketing, publicity, and or distribution teams. And then they list that. And we'll link to the standards when this posts, but I guess you would know that by the time you're listening to this because you could see that. That was a weird thing to say. I
don't think so. We're still figuring it out.
Okay, good. I think this is a good first step. I like that there is some articulation of what standards are going to be, but I think more than anything, it suggests to me that it's not saying that you won't be able to make a movie. It's just to say to qualify for something that is as big as Best Picture, that a different type of story, or at least different actors, to your point, different constituents, actors broadly defined, should be a part of this process in some way if it's going to be something that is the best of a category like Best Picture.
And I don't think anybody's surprised that they're getting nominated for Best Picture. Like, if you're getting nominated, it's because you tried to get nominated.
There's a lot of people I could point to, but I'm not going to get in any trouble with the Hollywood elite.
He's talking about me. I tried.
I am talking about you. On one issue, on one social issue, Hollywood's responding. On a different social issue, a little bit more controversy. And I'm talking about Mulan, Whitney Caps. Have you seen Mulan, by the way?
I haven't. I don't have Disney Plus. And I'm not particularly interested in getting it, so
I don't know. I don't know if it's, is this fair to say it's not live action? This is live action? They just redoing Mulan and it's
correct.
Not animated. It's all real people.
Correct. And this is actually a big push from the Disney vault to take a lot of animated movies and revamp them into a world that is almost shot for shot. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of these, but they do seem almost shot for shot remakes where it's basically like, let's take this recipe that we know works really well, let's repackage it, let's add a different spice, and we'll send it back out again in the world. And I think it kind of makes sense from a commercial point of view. You've got a bunch of people who grew up with these movies who now have children and want to reintroduce them. And I think there's opportunity, of course, for people to watch the old animated versions, but when you have something like a new Aladdin, a new Beauty and the Beast, there's something really fun about just being able to go to the movies and, well, I forgot, we can't go to the movies, but take your kid to the movies to see, hey, I watched this when I was a kid. It's slightly different, but, you know.
For all the upsides of potentially more stories highlighting and starring people of color, Mulan's catching a lot of criticism from people that were excited about it because of the movie's production team working with the Chinese government in particular, and I apologize for any mispronunciations here, in the Xinjiang region of China, and in particularly in part of the movie was filmed there, and that's a place of significant strife given the Turkish-speaking Uyghur people there that are frankly detained in
concentration
what
camps.
I think people would call concentration camps. Yeah. There's forced sterilization. There's, quote, re-education, close quote, techniques. And a lot of people have noticed that Disney and the film production was in the region working with the Chinese government and are calling for a boycott of the movie. And I think for me, the question that really percolates here is the standards that we hold and how we keep other people, other entities, other businesses, in this case, accountable to the decisions they make. I'm excited about the movie, but I don't want to support something that's working with the authoritarian regime that's putting folks in concentration camps. I don't know what the balance there is, and I'm now not inclined to see the movie. Yeah. But I think that this type of delicate balance and working with or in partnership with certain organizations or certain companies is coming up more and more, and I think it's impacting the way people thought about the line between there's entertainment and politics. That line seems to be blurred. I don't know. Where do you sit on something like this?
Oh God, it seems to be blurred everywhere, doesn't it? Right? Like people, whine and cry about cancel culture, and I certainly don't believe that cancel culture is this big epidemic. I'm not going to whine and cry about it. I'm certainly not asking for permission to do bad things or to work with a terrible Chinese regime. That's not my cup of tea. But that being said, I do think there's something really significant about how people really recognize that their dollars, their eyeballs, their participation with certain companies and the actions of those companies, there's a connection, I think, between the two of those, which I think is really, really interesting. I think I was probably like in my mid-20s before I realized like the only power I actually have is where I spend my money. Like, of course I can vote. Of course I can get out in my community and do things. But if I'm choosing to support something, if I'm choosing to give my money, my time, my eyeballs towards it, and I guess eyeballs are really money.
Moose has spoken.
He wants us to know. I don't know. I think if I'm making that choice, I'm making that choice with a new sensibility than I did before that. And I think that's what people are really tapping into, where they're kind of like, well, if I'm giving of my energy, my time, my money to Disney around this, I'm perhaps somehow complicit, or I'm tacitly approving, or I'm somehow saying that I think that this behavior is okay. What I think is really challenging about this, though, is that it's a completely imprecise weapon. Like saying I'm not going to give my eyeballs to, I don't know, X, Y, and Z restaurant down the street.
Right.
Wait, eyeballs, taste buds.
Oh, both.
The X, Y, and Z restaurant down the street because they, I don't know, they did something, they just did something bad. If there's no movement around that, if there's no, I guess sort of like convergent voice around why this action is happening, I just don't know how effective it is. And I think often we do it on very, very tiny little scales. But something big like, hey, Disney, we kind of think this is really bad. And I think there's probably a lot of people that actually had no idea what was going on with this Uyghur population. Again, Alan, I think your pronunciations were actually pretty spot on. But this is a group of people that's actually been, and it's not new for China. Let's be real.
Fair, very fair.
This is a group of people that has been persecuted for quite some time. And if Mulan being released is what kind of wakes people up to what's happening there, I think it's a really interesting way that entertainment can support real life change in action. Do I think it's going to be a big change? I don't. What do you think?
Well, I don't know if it will be a big change, but I think one of the things that has been an obstacle to change is the collective action problem of who's going to go first and who follows versus who leads. And we know just over time, people call it cancel culture today, but boycotting has been a tool that individuals collectively use that was effective when used as a mass. And so I think that it's always important when people think about what power they do have, particularly, I don't want to necessarily say in opposition to organizations or corporations, but certainly their own power vis-a-vis society.
Right.
Financial power and amplifying voice is something that people do have the capacity to control. And so whether it's with this issue or earlier learning that the star of Mulan, Liu Yifei, was someone that supported the Hong Kong police in its crackdown of pro-democracy protests in 2019, right? There is a sense of, if these are my values, I don't want to support people that are doing something that's against that.
Yeah.
Is it going to stop millions of people from downloading Mulan? No, probably not. But is it going to prevent what that upper limit is? And maybe make sure that when people talk about Mulan, there's also this conversation that's coming in. I think so. And that can happen whether it's sports, movies, clothing, technology. I think that increasing awareness is something that I think is beneficial. And I think that there's a tangible impact there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's really interesting too, thinking about how, I like what you said about like it creates a new upper limit, and the idea of like perhaps folks that were in talks to have productions there are changing their minds, right? Are they looking for other places in the world where they could have a similar sort of a vibe, like a production vibe feel, but wouldn't necessarily have, because you certainly want to keep authenticity, right? Like there's a really interesting thing that happens too when you think about like, what about a production about a Chinese character, Mulan and her family, and they're a Chinese character, and what happens if you actually take that story outside of China and then make it happen in, let's say, Laos, right?
Yeah.
There potentially would be uproar about that as well. So we do want to seek for authenticity. We do want to be supporting cultures that we are taking from ultimately, but I like the idea that people might just be a little bit more thoughtful about where they support and how they're engaging and how their authenticity is perhaps not always the best thing. Because I can certainly see like wanting to have that space and wanting to have that production it does make sense from a creative standpoint. If you do want to make it feel authentic and you want to be putting money in the pockets of the community that you're making a movie about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's challenging though. And I mean, a production that size, there will always be, there was a website that I used to love. Your Fave is Problematic, right? That every person you love has done some shitty thing. And we can decide that we want to cancel everybody because of that, or we can decide that we want to use that as an example. I guess, or we can decide we want to ignore it, because a whole lot of people do that too. But what I hope is that this is an opportunity, like you said, for productions, for production teams, producers, film studios to be really thoughtful about where it is that they're partnering to create these movies.
And hopefully people are encouraged to be attentive. The credits matter, and getting as much information as possible is crucial.
When I was a kid, we had to watch the credits. Like, we were not allowed to leave before the credits. I mean, not because, like, I need to know who the second grip was because his mom was so proud that he was there. I don't know. It was a thing.
You know what shouldn't be a thing? Gender reveal parties.
Oh.
In my opinion.
They're terrible. Absolutely terrible.
There was the West Coast is burning, and one of the reasons why it's burning is a gender reveal gone wrong. I don't know, it was just a big explosion, and it was going to shoot out blue or pink.
So pyrotechnics have become sort of a mainstay of this gender reveal party. For anybody who doesn't actually know what a gender reveal party is, it was started quite a few years ago by a woman, just a small independent blogger. She had a very small cake. It had pink icing or blue icing. I can't remember actually what the gender of her child was, but she had a small cake was made for her, so she didn't know what the gender of her child was, and put it up on her little mommy blog. It sort of caught fire in a really weird viral way.
Not literally.
This was, thank you for that. Yes, it was just a very popular idea. And so what we have is people trying to top all these different social media posts and viral videos about gender reveals. And it's essentially just very early in the pregnancy, get a bunch of people together, you have something that either goes off or is created or something like that that gives an indication to all of your family and friends who are watching, and of course all your followers on Instagram. It gives them a sense of what your baby's gender is. So problematic on many, many levels. Alan, what is your beef here, besides, of course, the forest fire?
Okay, there's two levels here, and I want to be clear about both. One is not as significant as the other, but both irk me. One is, what are we doing celebrating the gender or sex of a kid? Like, what are we actually doing? Because I think my issue is I don't think that concepts like masculinity and femininity should exist. I think that people should be described by the behaviors that they have, but not attached to a gender. And I think you prime the way that a parent or other people around a kid will treat them. And, the idea associating with colors, for instance, it's just kind of,
no
it does a lot of,
yeah.
Well, let me tell you something. And quick sidebar. I love racing games, and there's a part where you can design your own car. Green's my favorite color, so I go with a baseline green. But if I want to go with an alternative paint scheme, I'm talking about a black and a hot pink. It looks so good, particularly for a night race.
Which racing game are we talking about?
We're talking about Forza Motorsport 7, to be precise. But that's
Mario Kart or nothing.
Okay, well, that's to each their own. Although Luigi, that's the go-to move. Luigi, and
I agree.
Fantastic.
I agree. Daisy's good. I also think Toad, very underappreciated. I definitely don't go muscles. No King Kong, no King Koopa. None of the monarchy. So
that's number one.
That's number one. Tell me number two.
Number two. This whole party thing. Honestly, how many parties do you need to have?
This is the wrath of the introvert coming out.
No, it's preposterous. And all it is is a big show for absolutely nothing. And here's the other thing. You're just looking to get gifts. You're just looking, there's already a baby shower you got to go to. There's already a party that's going to be like, I'm going to be a mother, I'm going to be a father. So you're going to have one of those at the beginning. There's a baby shower coming later. This thing thrown in the middle. Everyone's bringing food over. If you're looking for a free meal and free gifts, just say, hey, do you want to go out to eat? Or in this case, can you make some dinner, drop it off? I actually don't want to talk to you. Put it on the front door and then leave a 20 spot there. And then I can buy whatever I want. It's the sense of this extra party BS I have no time for.
Well, and a lot of sort of cultural critics have argued that it's not just the sort of rise of this sort of me party culture, because we're actually finding that there's way more of that attached to pregnancy, but also things like weddings. Like there's a baby moon, there's a push present that needs to happen. There's no longer just sort of the bachelorette party and then the rehearsal dinner. There's now there's like family brunch after. There's all of these rituals and these very big events that are connected to it.
It's ridiculous.
And it's very, very different in the last, I would say maybe like 2 or 3 generations. There's been a lot of push towards more pomp and circumstance regarding these big life decisions. And it's a very interesting thing. Cultural critics have said that the rise of things like social media has played a big part of that, right? Like it's not just, I want to have the gender reveal party for the people who are here. People who have gender reveal parties almost invariably put them on the internet. I mean, the hardest thing about having a gender reveal party is like not sharing it with everybody.
And you got to, I like to just comment or just call the person up or send a text message, congratulations on the sex or the insemination, and keep it moving. I mean, I don't need to be, there's no FOMO here. Get out of my pocket. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds like your campaign speech for Godfather right there. But I also think there's another piece of this that gets a really challenging, and you kind of mentioned this when we talk about gender. I actually disagree that I don't think that masculinity and femininity as concepts need to just sort of be thrown out. But I think our attachment to them and what they look like and how they should be played out, I think are too fixed, are very there's a constricting nature, right? Masculinity puts you in a box. Femininity puts you in a box, as opposed to being something that enables you to think very creatively about what your identity is, right? And our gender is only one piece of our identity as human beings. If we get rid of building blocks of our identity, then we have problems. But if we're really able to use those building blocks to create something amazing, that can actually be a real key to raising a happy, healthy child. So an example might be, we think about, when I say masculinity, what are the things that come to mind for you as a man?
Strong, brave, courageous, loud. Those are the types of things that come to my mind. And as I say that, it's like, there's nothing inherent in an individual that would give them those qualities.
Sure.
As connected to their sex or gender.
Sure, and understanding that someone who has a vagina can also be loud and courageous and brave. And also understanding that masculinity, while again, it's very tied to sort of this male gender, is something that anybody of any gender can actually have. And I prescribe to the idea that we actually all have both masculine and feminine qualities, and those can both be toxic and they can be hugely beneficial. You described a lot of what I would consider as very beneficial masculine traits, things like bravery, courageousness. There's also a lot of caring that's associated with maleness, right? Like being someone who's the breadwinner, who's the head of the tribe, someone who's really responsible for others. That's a hugely beneficial thing. And we can also see parallels in like some really great, wonderful, beneficial female traits, feminine traits, and some really toxic feminine traits. And there's all kinds of research on like, what does it look like to sort of have this sort of yin and yang of the masculine and feminine. But I really think that when we decide that the gender of our child is a thing to be announced, is a thing to like have a big hullabaloo about, there's a sense to me that becomes much more important than those qualities of masculinity and femininity, those positive beneficial qualities, right? It's about being a man, whether that's good or bad, it doesn't really matter. It's just being a man, as opposed to like, you can have some really great, wonderful feminine traits, and you can have some really great, wonderful masculine traits. Let's focus on creating a really awesome human being, not just a great man or a great woman. That was my woman voice. I think I need to work on that. What?
Yeah, I think you got to put that in the hopper.
This is me holding a cake, a pie. I feel like I would drop it. Yes. I'm clearly too masculine for my own good.
I think it's something that we can certainly talk about further, because I think it's a great topic of conversation, because in my mind, as you described it, these traits, like you said, are could be found in a range of people. And so in many ways, for me, it means that, okay, if this is just a thing, then we should just call people by these traits and not have these traits and tropes lumped together as attached to a given identity. The point is...
Or genitalia.
Exactly. The point is, these parties.
There's parties.
Stop them.
Stop them. And by all means, like, just have a cake with icing. The woman who started this whole thing is basically like, you guys, this is way too much. All you need, just a little cake, just a little icing. Also, I did hear that the person who the gender reveal party was for, the child of that very first woman that was like, hey, look at this pink icing.
Yeah.
Is no longer...
Awkward.
I'm just going to start that sentence again. Come here. I don't know what you're upset about. Have a seat, please.
Gender reveal parties.
Have a seat, please.
Obviously.
So the child of that person who had the very first gender reveal party is actually a person that no longer feels particularly great about identifying as that gender. I don't exactly know what they go by, so I'll just go with the very general they pronoun. But I saw a recent interview with that woman, the woman who did the very first gender reveal party, and she was like, listen, it's not actually all that important, you know? It's much more important to support your kid however they are than to be all that concerned about announcing their gender to the world. So as we start to become a little bit more fluid, relaxed, agile around conversations around identity, I really do hope gender becomes another one. I mean, I am very much fine with my woman self. I don't know what it would feel like if I were somehow not feeling particularly aligned with the sex that I was assigned at birth. And I think I have a lot of empathy for just allowing folks who do feel that way to be able to explore it in a way that just feels really open and positive, as opposed to like me trying to create a picture of who they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think that's for sure. And especially if people want to spend their money on things and be aware, they should put their money where their mouth is, but don't eat it because that's dirty, and spend their money someplace else. Speaking of money, Dateline. Tanina, Washington.
This is probably my favorite story of the last couple weeks. I was really excited about it. I'm actually going to see if I can pull up the image. I'm going to show this because to me, this is just, it's precious, it's adorable, but it's also, I think, a story of a small town really trying their best to figure out how to support their citizens. So what I'm showing you right now is the Tanina, Washington Chamber of Commerce currency. It is their own currency that is actually staked on, is that the right word, Alan? Staked on the US dollar?
Pegged to the US dollar. And what they really were hoping to do is, in this time of economic tumult, that is, you know, obviously the reaction to all of this sort of public health tumult that we have going on in this country, they were not going to allow their citizens to be without the essentials. So each resident was issued 300 sort of Tanino bucks. I don't think that's what they're calling it, but I like it. I think it's cute. No?
Tanino woods?
And they're made of wood. They are accepted at all local businesses. And it really just became this way for the small town to keep their residents afloat during a time where they really knew that they needed support. I love this story.
It's not the first time that local economies have, or local currencies have been used to stabilize or kind of get by during tough times, and certainly not limited to the United States. The idea, though, that these are carved out of wood,
I know,
is incredible. I mean, you got to make sure that thing is smooth. You know how like a dollar like bills get crumpled up and some
Oh,
places
yeah.
don't accept them, and then some of it's dirty.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to catch a splinter. Like, here you go at the supermarket. It's like, oh
Oh
my
God, I
goodness.
didn't even think about that part. My thought was, well,
Stand
I
that thing
can't fold
down.
my wallet now, you know?
Ooh,
Like I
that's a great
can't.
point. That's a great
And I guess
point.
for me, it's not that big of a deal. My wallet is not foldable, but it's like a little half moon shape. And what I
Okay.
do is I fold up the currency and I put it inside. I say it like I carry currency all the time. I do not. I am a Venmo swipe and pay kind of a girl. And I just think about the idea of like someone carrying like 10 of those, to the convenience store down the street to be like, I need a bar of soap and some orange juice and some eggs. What? I don't understand. It is just delightful to me that they are harkening back to something that, I mean, this was something during the Great Depression here in the United States where individual communities would band together and really think about like, okay, how can we continue to support one another? And I have always thought, anybody who understands economics is going to be like, oh, Whitney, I've always thought currency is made up. Just print as much of it as you want.
Oh dear.
See?
Okay.
I know.
Little
Like, we're
inflation
the only
issue.
ones that determine what the value of it is. Just print some more weird cotton paper with dead presidents on it.
No.
Okay, go ahead and explain to me why that's a bad thing.
Well, you just kind of inflation. It's gonna lose value. It's like when you
So a loaf
overproduce a
of bread is
podcast.
like $12, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now wait. Now real quick, before we close on this topic, you know how sometimes people want to make a big show of them tipping, and sometimes they wait for the cashier to turn around so you can see the bill put into the little tip jar.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they like to put in coins because you can hear it.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
You know, with these wooden pieces of currency, I mean, do you think people are really making a big show, really slamming it down there? Oh,
I do.
That's a 5. And are they different weights? Like, is a 5 coming in a little bit heavier?
Oh my gosh, I love that idea. Oh my gosh, imagine 100. 100 is like as thick as like a Lego brick.
And then someone who has a lot of money doesn't need it. They play that little game you find them at the Cracker Barrel with the little pegs in it. So they drill holes into the $100 bill. I just wonder.
The one you skip over the peg?
Exactly.
Is that what you're talking about? Yes.
Yeah, we've lost all of our audience. But I'm telling you, it's a great game. The food is good.
You think they don't like Cracker Barrel?
I
mean, I get that it's called Cracker Barrel, but
yeah,
they just go for the rocking
these days,
chairs.
you know.
No, they just go for the rocking chairs. They don't care.
Whitney, we will close. We will close with official league sanctioned. I don't know what league, but certainly approved recommendations here.
Let's do this.
Whitney, do you want to give the people, and these are coming in hot. They're going to be different every week.
I would love
recommendations here. Lead us off.
I would love to. So I recently discovered, and I should say, just to preface a little bit, Alan pointed this out in our pre-show meeting, that our episode closers used to be real shitty. Used to be people we hate. Used to be people we want to leave outside. What were the other things we used?
Unpopular opinions were the last go around.
Opinions. And I immediately came to our meeting today and I was like, I want to close with recommendations. Because I do think there's a point at which we sort of exhaust our own little comfort zone of things that we consume, right? We listen to all the albums. We've read all the books. We really just are looking for something new because we have all this time where we get an opportunity to just consume wonderful arts, media, adventures, things like that. So I have 2 recommendations right now. The first is,
the double.
I got 2 things that I have going on. I have recently started kayaking in the Chicago River. And it's a really wonderful social distance, happy kind of activity that you can do. So you can go with 2 or 3 people. You can each get your own little kayak. You can go, kayaking around. There are only a few more wonderful kayak days that we'll see this fall.
Quickly dwindling.
Highly recommend that folks who are interested in that go. But beyond that, really thinking creatively about what are the outdoor things in your area. I know we're getting into winter, but there are still really great opportunities for things like, what is it called? Cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, broom ball. Alan knows a lot about that. But thinking about one of the things I've loved about this quarantine, I know that's a weird thing to say, like I've loved it about this quarantine season, is that it has actually forced me to do a lot more outdoor activities that I probably would have never done before. In my head, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go kayaking on the Chicago River. It has been such a wonderful thing to do. And it's been so great to use that opportunity to reconnect with people in a way that's like, you can't actually get all that close to someone. So it's a really wonderful, safe way to do that. The other recommendation that I will make, and this is a bit easier, is Amazon Prime has a TV show called Jean-Claude Van Johnson, in which Jean-Claude Van Damme is a retired, washed up action hero, but he's also a secret agent. And it is delightful in the vein of Airplane and Mel Brooks movies. And it's so funny because I just watched Bloodsport. Is that the one where that was like his first?
Oh, yeah.
So I just watched Bloodsport at the recommendation of a friend and literally was like, oh, this is a little bit racist and also really, really bad acting, but I enjoy it. And to see him from that and to see that he like is a wonderful actor that actually does like make so much lovely fun of himself. It's a parody of action movies. It's a parody of Jean-Claude Van Damme. It was actually quite delightful. It's 6 episodes. It gets a little muddy at the end, but it's still highly, highly worth the watch. So anybody that's interested in 90s action movies, one of my favorite genres of all time, you might really enjoy Jean-Claude Van Johnson on Amazon Prime.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Highly recommend. What are you recommending?
Great question, and seems appropriate for the segment. I'm a big audiobook person. I like mysteries. I don't really buy physical books anymore, but I'm going to recommend, it's questionable, but I can listen because I'm no fool. I'm going to recommend a book for those interested in sports and social issues. Loving Sports When They Don't Love You Back. Dilemmas of the Modern Sports Fan by Jessica Luther and Kavitha Davidson. It's a fantastic book that really gets into everything from racism and bigotry to domestic violence to doping, everything in between, and just the perpetual kind of push-pull between I like and love these players and like and love this team, and they're forever doing things that make things very difficult to enjoy as a human being. It's a really cool book, really great authors, and I encourage people who care about sports but also are aware of things happening in the world around them to check it out. Buy it from your local bookstore.
Can I recommend Semicolon?
Sure.
I love them. Hey guys, buy from Semicolon.
That was a very clean, neat recommendation.
Well, I mean, you don't have to be in Chicago. You can get their books online. Semicolon, spelled semicolon. Allen.
Do you put a semicolon at the end of it, or?
No.
Just the word?
Just the word.
All right. It's getting dark, so, go ahead.
I was going to ask, did you have fun?
No, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of preparation.
I had enough fun for both of us.
Okay.
I'm glad to be back.
I'm happy to be back. Was it fun? I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
But you can always be in touch with the show. splitthediff@gmail.com. SplitDiffCast. We're going to get the Twitter handle fired up. It's still on my phone. Just put out some content. Let us know what you think. And give us recommendations for topics. We want to hear from you. It's great to be back. 0039 in the books, and we're out of here. Thanks for listening and watching.
My wave is better.
Well, I mean, you did a lot. I just did a wind.